people live in the city now, 500,000. So it's around about 60 to 80,000 people per valley. Now this building directly in front of us is Duntroon. This is the original farmhouse that was owned by Roger Campbell. And this building, the temporary Parliament House of Australia. In those days it was called Provisional Parliament House, now the Museum of Australian Democracy. It's a museum, we can go through it. I am asked to ask you not to touch anything because it is a museum. So here's the British High Commission. Go around behind. This one in the New Zealand and the Canadians. Not too swish, the British High Commission, nothing very fancy. Mind you, in contrast with the Chinese opposite, the Chinese are making a big statement. What do you reckon?
Definitely can't get on there.
The Chinese telling us something. And you see how the camera's faced straight at my lips? So in there is a compound that the Chinese never leave. Unlike the New Zealand one here on the left.
Because it's cows.
And no doubt the Chinese are all just spies. Spying on Australian Chinese.
Who owns their shore land?
It's exchange land. The law, well, the Commonwealth still actually owns the land, but the law of China applies in there. And the law of Canada applies in here. So when you're on site in there, you're subject to the laws of Canada. Here we have the Papua New Guinea High Commission, built in the style of a civic longhouse. On the left here we have a bit of land that was a bit contentious. The Russians wanted a new piece of land. We gave them that for exchange for their old bit that they had. They then wanted to keep both. So we said, interestingly, at the top of the hill here, on the right we've got the mosque, Canberra Mosque, and directly opposite we have the site for the new Iranian embassy. The Iranians were building a new embassy about 6 months ago. They started development on this site. Then there was the strike on the nuclear facility. Then we threw out the ambassador because they were bombing places in Australia. Then we're associated with a war with Iran. So this whole block just went into the abyss for a while. EU has an embassy in Canberra, and the EU went all around Europe looking at all the best architecture they could find in the beautiful buildings of Greece and Italy and the United Kingdom, Scandinavia, and they put it all together and they thought they would showcase all of Europe's greatest architecture with this building. On the left we've got the Spanish embassy. The EU countries often fly the EU flag as well. So here we have the Spanish embassy, the Irish embassy with the Irish ambassador's house down the back, just through that gate. Belgium embassy on the left. Not much of a building, the embassy itself, but have a look up the back of the ambassador's house. It wouldn't be a bad gig, would it? To have to live there in Australia for a few years. Anyone put up with that? Yeah. You could do that, could you? The country pays for the buildings and everything inside the fence, and Australia pays for all the security outside the fence. So this guard here is an Australian, paid for by Australia. Inside the fence it'll be Marine Corps or whatever.
So if there's an incident,
Yes.
the
The federal police cannot go through the fence. If they did, they could be shot by the government. It would be regarded as an invasion. So no Australian official has any authority inside that fence. And that applies to everything. It applies to murders, rapes, conditions of employment for cleaners, you name it, any law.
Sorry, what was this one again?
The largest embassy in Canberra, US, and they have a huge compound here. They do have lots of houses around Canberra as well where a lot of their staff live, so they do mix in around the city a lot, but the compounds are very large as well. Up until Trump became president, the ambassador here was Caroline Kennedy. She lived inside, JFK's daughter. South African High Commission directly opposite, Pakistan further up, and then the French up on the top of the hill. So you get the sense of it, guys. All these embassies located close to Parliament. If we want to, we can call up the ambassador to give them a serve about something if we wish to. Or we can send them a message about what we think should happen.
Oh yeah.
So it's not particularly grand, but it's comfortable. When Bob Hawke was the Prime Minister, I was the Director of Open Spaces in Canberra. I managed all of the parks and external areas. I managed the lodge in 1988. And one of the first things that Bob did when he arrived in Canberra was he requested us to install a cricket wicket in the backyard. And we had to get the turf from the Melbourne Cricket Ground, which we did. And we also installed a golfing putting green and a chipping green. He loved sport. He didn't pretend, he loved it. And every morning he'd get up, before he had breakfast, he'd have a hit of cricket, hit of golf, practice his swing, and then go and have breakfast.
I'm the photographer.
Okay, so we come in here. This would be set up for 800 people to have a dinner. All the doors along the sides will be open. 200 uni students in Canberra will get a gig. and they'll be serving at the tables underneath a huge commercial kitchen, and everyone.